I was sitting in our living room holding the acceptance letter from Columbia University. 12 years of hard work had finally paid off. The $200,000 fund my grandmother Dorothy had set up for me when I was born was ready. Everything felt perfect until my parents called me downstairs with unusually serious voices. My sister Madison, 5 years older than me, sat beside them with a strange smile on her face. Something felt wrong. I could feel it in my chest. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you believe family should support each other no matter what, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what my parents asked me to do that night changed everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. My grandmother Dorothy was not just any grandmother. She was a self-made businesswoman who built her career from nothing in the 70s when women were barely taken seriously in the corporate world. She started with a small accounting firm and grew it into something respected throughout our state. When I was born 22 years ago, she did something that would change my life forever. She set up a trust fund specifically for my education. I remember sitting with her on summer afternoons when I was younger. She would tell me stories about money responsibility and planning for the future. Her voice was calm but firm when she explained that education was the one thing nobody could ever take away from you. She believed in investing in knowledge and building a foundation that would last a lifetime. The fund she created was legally protected, meant only for my college tuition, books, housing, and living expenses while I studied. She made it clear to everyone that this money had one purpose and one purpose only. When Grandma Dorothy passed away 2 years ago, I felt like I had lost my biggest supporter. She left behind this incredible gift, and I promised myself at her funeral that I would make her proud. I would use every opportunity this fund provided to build the future she believed I could have. My relationship with my sister Madison was complicated at best. She was 27 now, 5 years my senior, and we had never been particularly close. Growing up, Madison was always the princess of the family. My parents doted on her constantly. She got her first car at 18, a brand new sedan that she picked out herself. She went to the state university where she studied marketing, though she never seemed passionate about it. After graduation, she landed a job at a small marketing firm where she made decent money but complained constantly about not having enough. Madison had expensive tastes. She loved designer handbags, luxury vacations, and dining at restaurants where entrees cost more than most people spent on groceries for a week. She met her fiancé Garrett about 3 years ago. He worked as a software engineer and made good money, which seemed to be one of his main attractions in her eyes. They announced their engagement 6 months back, and since then, wedding planning had consumed her entire existence. The truth was, Madison and I existed in different worlds. She often looked down on me, treating me like the annoying little brother who did not understand real life. She would make comments about how easy I had it with my trust fund, completely ignoring the fact that I worked part-time jobs throughout high school while she spent money like water flowed from a tap. We were civil at family gatherings, but there was no real warmth between us. My parents, Roger and Linda, were middle-class folks who worked hard but were never wealthy. Dad managed a mid-level position at a manufacturing company. Mom stayed home to raise us kids and manage the household. They were good people in many ways, but their favoritism toward Madison was impossible to miss. They seemed to operate under this old-fashioned belief that daughters needed more support and attention, while sons should just figure things out on their own. They never set up a college fund for Madison because, in their words, they assumed she would get married, and her husband would provide for her. It was a backward way of thinking, but it was how they were raised. Meanwhile, they were grateful that Grandma had taken care of my education because it was one less burden on their shoulders. They saw Grandma's gift to me as a family blessing, not understanding that it was specifically and intentionally for me alone. I worked hard throughout my entire academic career. I graduated high school with a perfect 4.0 grade point average. My SAT score was 1520 out of 1600. I spent countless hours leading our debate club as president, volunteering at the community center, teaching kids how to read, and building a resume that would make any university take notice. I applied to several Ivy League schools and got accepted into Columbia, Cornell, and Duke. I chose Columbia because their international economics program was exactly what I needed for my career goals. My plan was clear: 4 years of undergraduate study, then a master's degree, followed by a career in consulting or investment banking. I wanted to build something meaningful, something that would make Grandma Dorothy proud. When that acceptance letter arrived, I felt like everything I had worked for was finally coming together. The trust fund would cover my expenses, and I could focus entirely on my studies without the burden of student loans that crushed so many of my peers. That night, when my parents called me downstairs, I had no idea that everything was about to fall apart. The living room felt smaller than usual. Dad sat in his usual recliner, but his posture was stiff and formal. Mom perched on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands in that way she did when she was nervous about something. Madison sat beside her, and I noticed her freshly manicured nails and the enormous diamond engagement ring that caught the light every time she moved her hand. Dad cleared his throat. "Son, we need to talk about something important. The family needs help." I sat down slowly, my acceptance letter still in my hand. "What kind of help?" Mom jumped in quickly, her voice higher than normal. "Madison is getting married, and she wants to have the wedding of her dreams. You know how important this is to her." Madison nodded enthusiastically. "I have been planning this my entire life, Chandler. I want everything to be perfect." Dad continued. "Your sister has chosen a beautiful resort venue on the coast. It is absolutely stunning. The kind of place you see in magazines." "Okay," I said slowly, not sure where this was going. Mom explained further. "The venue, the flowers, the catering, everything adds up. Madison and Garrett have priced everything out. With 300 guests, the total comes to about $150,000. I nearly dropped my letter. $150,000. For one day. Madison's expression hardened. "It is not just one day. It is the most important day of my life. I have waited for this forever." Dad raised his hand to calm things down. "We understand it is a lot. Your mother and I have been saving. We have about $50,000 set aside. Garrett's family is contributing $40,000. That leaves us $60,000 short." The room went silent. I looked from face to face, and then it hit me what they were really saying. "You want me to give you money from my college fund?" I said the words barely coming out. Mom nodded quickly. "Just to help out. You would still have $140,000 left. That is plenty for 4 years of college." My mind was racing. "That money is for my education. Grandma set it up specifically for my tuition, books, housing, and living expenses. It is not meant for anything else." Dad leaned forward. "We understand that, but family helps family. This is your sister's wedding. It only happens once." Madison spoke up, her voice sharp. "Are you really going to be selfish about this? This is my big day, Chandler. I need this. Do you not care about your own sister's happiness?" I tried to stay calm, but my heart was pounding. "I do care, but I also care about my education. Do you know how expensive living in New York City is? $140,000 might sound like a lot, but tuition alone at Columbia is over $60,000 a year. That is $240,000 for 4 years, not counting housing, food, textbooks, or transportation. The fund is already calculated carefully for what I need." Mom jumped in. "You can work part-time. Lots of students work their way through college, and you can apply for scholarships. You are smart, Chandler. You will figure it out." The comment stung. I had worked part-time throughout high school while Madison spent freely. Now they were suggesting I should work even harder so she could have an extravagant party. Dad tried a different approach. "Your grandmother would have wanted the family to be happy. She always said family was the most important thing." "She also said education was the most important thing," I countered. "That is why she set up the fund in the first place." Madison rolled her eyes. "You always were Grandma's favorite. She gave you everything and left me with nothing." That comment confused me because I knew it was not true, but I did not understand why at the time. Mom started crying. "I just want to give my daughter a beautiful wedding." "Is that so wrong? I only have one daughter. Please, Chandler, we need you to do this for the family." The manipulation was becoming clearer. They were using guilt, emotion, and family obligation to pressure me into giving up a significant portion of my future. I felt like the walls were closing in. Madison decided to twist the knife further. "Grandma gave you that money because she knew I would not need it. She probably thought I would just get married and be taken care of. Well, I am getting married now, and I need help. If you do not give it, Then what does that say about you? Dad made an offer that sounded reasonable on the surface. Look, we will pay you back. Give us 5 years and we will return every penny with interest. Can I get that in writing? I asked. A legal contract. Dad's face reddened. You do not trust your own family. What kind of question is that? Mom added, if you do not help, Madison will have to cancel everything. She will have to call all 300 guests and tell them there is no wedding. Do you want to be responsible for ruining your sister's happiness? The pressure continued for 2 solid hours. They took turns hitting me from different angles. Family loyalty, Grandma's wishes, Madison's one special day, my supposed selfishness, the fact that I was smart enough to find other ways to pay for school. Every argument designed to make me feel like the villain in this situation. Madison pulled out her phone and started showing me pictures of everything she had planned. Look at this dress. It is Oscar de la Renta, $12,000, but it is exactly what I have dreamed about since I was a little girl. And these flowers, they are being imported specially. $8,000, but they are going to be absolutely breathtaking. She scrolled through more images. This photographer won awards for his work. He charges $15,000 for the day, but his photos are pure art. And we are having both a DJ and a live band. $10,000 total, but music makes the whole atmosphere. The menu is 7 courses designed by a Michelin-trained chef. $200 per person, but our guests deserve the best. I listened to her list off expense after expense, each one more excessive than the last. Everything in me wanted to scream that this was insane, that she could have a beautiful wedding for a fraction of the cost, but I knew suggesting budget cuts would only make me the enemy. Could you not cut back on some of this? I asked carefully. Maybe fewer guests or a less expensive venue? Madison's face turned red. How dare you tell me I am being wasteful? This is my wedding, Chandler. I have waited my whole life for this. Every girl dreams about her perfect wedding day. Are you really going to take that away from me? Garrett, who had been silent this entire time, finally spoke. Madison has very specific dreams. I want to give her everything she wants. We just need a little help from family to make it happen. That was the first time he had contributed to the conversation, and even then it was just to support whatever Madison wanted. I realized he was not going to be a voice of reason here. I felt completely alone. 3 against 1. My parents and sister all united in believing I should sacrifice my future for one expensive party. Nobody was standing up for me. Nobody was acknowledging that what they were asking was fundamentally wrong. As the night wore on, I felt myself being pushed into a corner. They were relentless. Every time I tried to explain my position, they found a new way to make me feel guilty. I finally told them I needed time to think about it, which only made them push harder. Time to think about what? Madison demanded. Either you care about family, or you do not. I left that night feeling sick to my stomach. The acceptance letter that had made me so happy just hours earlier now felt heavy in my pocket. I could not sleep at all. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, trying to find a way out of this nightmare that would not destroy my relationship with my family, but also would not destroy my future. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I needed to talk to someone who understood the legal reality of the trust fund, someone who could give me facts instead of emotional manipulation. I pulled out the business card that had been in Grandma Dorothy's papers. Mr. Patterson, the attorney who had managed her estate for 30 years. I called his office as soon as they opened. Mr. Patterson's office was downtown in a building that smelled like old wood and leather-bound books. He was a man in his early 60s with gray hair and a kind face that had seen countless family disputes over money. His secretary showed me into his office where he sat behind a massive desk covered in neat stacks of documents. Chandler, he greeted me, shaking my hand firmly. I was wondering when I might hear from you. Please sit down. I settled into the chair across from him and immediately started explaining everything that had happened. The demand for $60,000, Madison's extravagant wedding plans, the pressure from my parents, the guilt they were laying on me. He listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. Chandler, do you understand how your grandmother set up this trust fund? I know she wanted it used for my education, I said. It is more specific than that. He pulled out a thick folder from his filing cabinet. Your grandmother was very deliberate when she created this trust. Let me read you the exact language she used. He put on his reading glasses and opened to a marked page. The funds contained herein shall be used solely and exclusively for the educational expenses of Chandler Morrison, including but not limited to tuition-required textbooks, necessary supplies, housing directly related to attendance at an accredited institution of higher learning, and reasonable living expenses during the period of his undergraduate and graduate studies. Under no circumstances shall these funds be diverted to any other purpose or beneficiary. He looked up at me over his glasses. Do you understand what that means? It means the money can only be used for my school expenses, I said. Exactly. And it means if you were to transfer $60,000 to your sister for her wedding, you would be violating the terms of the trust. The legal consequences could be severe. The remaining funds could be frozen. You could be held liable. Your grandmother put these protections in place specifically to prevent anyone from pressuring you to use this money for anything other than education. I felt a weight lift off my chest. So legally I cannot give them the money even if I wanted to. Not without serious legal ramifications, no. Your parents are not the trustees of this fund. I am. And my responsibility is to ensure the money is used exactly as your grandmother intended. She trusted me to protect your future, Chandler. That is what I am doing. I sat back in my chair absorbing this information. I had legal protection. I was not the bad guy here. Grandma had anticipated this might happen and had built in safeguards. Mr. Patterson was not finished. There is something else you need to know. He pulled out another file, this one thinner. Your grandmother also left funds for Madison. My head snapped up. What? Yes. She established a separate trust for your sister. $50,000 to be released when Madison turned 21. The purpose was for continuing education or starting a business. Madison received the full amount 5 years ago. The room started spinning. Madison got $50,000 from Grandma. She did. I handled the distribution myself. She signed all the paperwork and confirmed receipt of the funds. What did she do with it? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Mr. Patterson shook his head slowly. I am not privy to how she spent the money. That was her choice to make. But from what you are telling me about her current financial situation and her need to ask you for money, I think we can both draw conclusions. He reached into the folder and pulled out an envelope. Your grandmother asked me to give you this if you ever came to me with concerns about family pressure regarding the trust fund. She wrote it 2 years before she passed away. My hands shook as I took the envelope. It was sealed with my name written in Grandma Dorothy's distinctive handwriting. I carefully opened it and unfolded the letter inside. My dearest Chandler, it began. If you are reading this, it means someone in the family has asked you to give up part of your educational fund. I am not surprised. I know my family well. I love Madison and your parents, but I also know their weaknesses. Madison has never learned to manage money responsibly. She sees money as something to be spent rather than invested. I gave her a substantial gift, hoping she would use it wisely, but I suspect she did not. Your parents mean well, but they have always enabled Madison's behavior. They would sacrifice your future without realizing what they are doing, because they cannot see past her immediate wants. I set up your trust with strict legal protections because I knew this day might come. Do not feel guilty for protecting your future. Do not let anyone convince you that family loyalty means destroying your own opportunities. I believe in you, Chandler. I always have. You have the discipline, intelligence, and character to make the most of the education this fund will provide. Go to Columbia. Build the life I know you are capable of building. And remember, do not let anyone take away your future, not even family. With all my love, Grandma Dorothy. Tears ran down my face as I read her words. She had known. She had seen all of this coming and had tried to protect me even after she was gone. I felt her presence in that office, her wisdom reaching out from beyond death to guide me through this crisis. Mr. Patterson gave me a moment to collect myself, then spoke gently. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman. She understood people better than most. She knew exactly what she was doing when she structured these trusts the way she did. "What should I do?" I asked, my voice rough with emotion. "You should tell your family the truth. Tell them about the legal restrictions. Tell them about Madison's $50,000. And then you should go to Colombia and live the life your grandmother wanted for you. You are not responsible for fixing your sister's poor financial choices." I nodded slowly, feeling clarity for the first time since this nightmare began. But I needed more information before I confronted my family. I needed to know exactly what Madison had done with her money. I spent the next 2 days doing research. I called in a favor from a friend who worked in accounting. With a little digging and some information Madison had carelessly posted on social media over the years, we pieced together where her $50,000 had gone. She bought a BMW 3 years ago for $35,000. She posted photos of it, constantly bragging about her new luxury car. 2 years later, she sold it at a significant loss because she could not afford the maintenance and insurance. The European vacation she took with her girlfriends 2 years ago cost about $10,000 based on the hotels and restaurants she tagged in her posts. Then there were the designer handbags, the clothes, the shoes, all adding up to the remaining $5,000. Not a single dollar had gone toward education or building a business. Not a single dollar had been invested or saved. She had burned through Grandma's gift in less than 2 years, spending it on depreciating assets and experiences that left nothing behind but photos and memories. I felt anger rising in my chest. Madison had wasted an opportunity that many people would kill for. She had taken Grandma's generosity and thrown it away on temporary pleasures. And now she had the audacity to demand money from my educational fund, acting like she was entitled to it because her own poor choices had left her broke. I knew what I had to do. I called a family meeting. I told my parents it was urgent and that I needed both them and Madison present. I also asked Mr. Patterson if he would be willing to attend, and he agreed. The day of the meeting, I arrived at my parents' house armed with documents, bank statements, and Grandma's letter. Mr. Patterson came with his briefcase full of legal paperwork. When my parents and Madison saw the attorney walk in, their faces went pale. "What is going on?" Dad asked, his voice tight. "Sit down," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "We need to talk about Grandma's trust funds, all of them." Madison looked confused. "What do you mean, all of them?" I spread the documents out on the coffee table. "Before we discuss my educational fund any further, I want to clarify something. Mr. Patterson, would you please explain the legal terms of my trust?" The attorney pulled out his copy of the trust agreement and read aloud the same passage he had shown me in his office. He explained clearly that the money could not legally be used for anything other than my direct educational expenses. He detailed the consequences if I were to violate those terms. My parents listened in shocked silence. "So you are saying Chandler cannot give us the money even if he wants to?" Mom asked. "That is exactly what I am saying. Your mother-in-law was very specific about this. The protections exist to prevent exactly this type of situation." Dad's face was red. "She never told us it was that restrictive." "She did not need to tell you. It was not your money to control. It was set up for Chandler's benefit, and my job as trustee is to ensure it is used properly." Madison was getting impatient. "Fine. So he cannot give us the money. We will figure something else out." "Not so fast," I said. "There is more you need to know. Mr. Patterson, please tell them about Madison's trust." The silence that followed was deafening. Madison's face went from confusion to alarm in seconds. "What trust?" Mom asked. Mr. Patterson pulled out another set of documents. "Dorothy Morrison established a separate trust for Madison. $50,000 released when she turned 21. The stated purpose was for continuing education or starting a business. Madison received the full distribution 5 years ago." Dad turned to Madison. "You got $50,000 from Mom." Madison was shaking her head, but her face told the truth. It was my money. I did not have to tell anyone." "What did you do with it?" Mom's voice was barely a whisper. I answered before Madison could fabricate a story. "She bought a BMW for $35,000, which she sold 2 years later at a loss. She took a $10,000 vacation to Europe. The rest went to designer purses, shoes, and clothes. I have the receipts from her social media posts and credit card statements my friend helped me track down. The room erupted. Dad was shouting at Madison about responsibility. Mom was crying, saying she could not believe her daughter had lied to them. Madison was trying to defend herself, claiming it was her money and she had every right to spend it however she wanted. "You are right," I said loudly, cutting through the chaos. "It was your money, Madison. You had every right to spend it, but you do not have the right to demand my educational fund because you wasted yours. You do not get to guilt me into giving up my future because you made poor choices with the gift Grandma gave you." I pulled out Grandma's letter and read it aloud. Every word hit like a hammer. When I reached the part about not letting anyone take away my future, not even family, Mom burst into fresh tears. "She knew," Mom said quietly. "She knew we would do this." Dad sat down heavily, all the fight gone out of him. "We have been unfair to you, son. Your grandmother was right to protect your fund the way she did." Madison was still trying to argue. "This is not fair. I need help with my wedding. Do you all expect me to just cancel everything?" "No," I said firmly. "I expect you to scale back to what you can actually afford. Have a smaller wedding, fewer guests, a less expensive venue, normal flowers instead of imported ones, a regular photographer instead of an award winner. Make choices that fit your budget instead of demanding everyone else sacrifice their futures for your one-day party." She glared at me with pure hatred. "I will never forgive you for this." "That is your choice," I said, surprised by how calm I felt. "But I am not going to apologize for protecting the future Grandma wanted me to have. She gave both of us gifts. What we did with them says everything about who we are." The meeting ended badly. Madison stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Dad and Mom stayed shell-shocked by the revelations. A few weeks later, Dad called me and apologized properly. He said they had been blind to Madison's faults and had treated me unfairly. Mom sent me a long letter expressing similar sentiments. It helped, but the damage to our relationship was already done. August came faster than I expected. Moving day arrived with a mixture of excitement and sadness. My parents helped me load my belongings into their car for the drive to New York. The atmosphere was still strained, but they were trying to be supportive. Madison did end up having her wedding, but it looked nothing like her original plans. She found a nice local venue that cost a fraction of the resort. The guest list shrank to 100 people. She wore a beautiful dress, but not the $12,000 designer gown. The flowers were lovely, the food was good, and by all accounts it was a perfectly nice wedding. She just refused to speak to me throughout the entire event. I kept Grandma's letter in my wallet. Sometimes I would take it out and read it when I felt unsure or homesick. Her words grounded me, reminded me why I was here and what I was working toward. Columbia exceeded every expectation. The campus buzzed with energy and intelligence. My classes challenged me in ways high school never had. I joined the Student Investment Club, where I met people who shared my passion for economics and finance. I found a summer internship at a consulting firm that paid well and gave me real-world experience. I made friends who understood ambition and hard work. Living in New York City was everything I hoped it would be. The opportunities seemed endless. Every street corner held something new to discover. I learned to navigate the subway system, found cheap but delicious restaurants, and discovered hidden spots in the city where I could study in peace. My relationship with my parents slowly improved over the months. They came to visit me during my first semester, and we had dinner in a little Italian restaurant near campus. They seemed genuinely proud of what I was accomplishing. They apologized again for what had happened, and admitted they had been wrong to pressure me the way they did. Madison and I did not speak for a long time. Eventually, she sent me a short email on my birthday. It was not an apology, but it was not hostile either. Just a brief message wishing me well. I wrote back with equal brevity. Maybe someday we would have a real relationship, but I was not holding my breath. Some bridges once burned, never fully rebuild. The biggest lesson I learned from everything that happened was about boundaries. Loving your family does not mean sacrificing everything for them. It does not mean enabling their poor choices or letting them derail your own future. Real love respects boundaries. Real family supports your growth instead of demanding you shrink yourself to make them comfortable. I learned that standing up for yourself is not selfish. Protecting your future is not greedy. And sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who will pressure you to give up the most. Grandma understood that. She had seen it play out before, probably in her own life. That is why she built those legal protections into the trust. Not because she did not love Madison or my parents, but because she loved me enough to protect me from their weaknesses. Every time I walked across campus or sat in a lecture hall learning from brilliant professors, I thought about Grandma Dorothy. I thought about her wisdom, her foresight, and her unwavering belief in education. She gave me more than money. She gave me the freedom to build the life I wanted without being held back by other people's bad decisions. I graduated 4 years later with honors. I got accepted into Columbia's graduate program with a full scholarship. I landed a job at a prestigious investment firm before I even finished my master's degree. Every step of the way, I carried Grandma's lessons with me. The money from the trust was spent exactly as she intended. Every dollar went toward building my future. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was diverted. And because of that, I was able to achieve things I might never have reached if I had given in to the pressure that night in my parents' living room. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not helping Madison with her wedding. The answer is always no, because what would I have been helping with? Not a marriage or a partnership or a future. I would have been funding one expensive party that she could not afford, enabling the same poor financial choices that had already cost her $50,000. That would not have been help. That would have been harm disguised as generosity. Real help means letting people face the consequences of their choices. Real help means protecting your own ability to thrive, so you can eventually help others from a position of strength rather than weakness. Grandma knew that. She taught me that. And I will carry that lesson for the rest of my life. I sit in my apartment now looking out at the New York skyline. Grandma never got to see me here, but I know she would be proud. I made it to the place she envisioned for me. I protected the gift she gave me. And I learned to stand firm when people tried to take it away. The people who love you most are not always the ones closest to you by blood. Sometimes they are the ones who have the wisdom to protect your future, even when they are no longer here to see it unfold. Grandma Dorothy was that person for me. Her trust fund was not just about money. It was about trust in the deepest sense. She trusted me to use it wisely, and she trusted that her legal protections would shield me when I needed them most. And she was right. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family over money or your future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family, money, and the hard choices we sometimes have to make. Share this with someone who needs to hear that protecting their dreams is not selfish. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that your future is worth protecting. Take care of yourselves out there and remember what matters most.